I believe DIY-urbanism would offer government an opportunity to explain to the citizens what their difficulties are. And the citizens, in turn, would speak to government about what they can do, and both parties come together with their resources, with their insights, to build infrastructure for the city. Interestingly, this is also an African concept in the sense that traditional African societies have always had this type of philosophy enshrined in the concept of Ubuntu. And Ubuntu means people coming together as a community to make life better for themselves. That is what informs DIY for most communities.
We're talking about this in an African context. And because of the nature of the society we live in, I strongly feel it's something that, by and large, still needs to be driven top down. Because the social development of the human society here is not at a point where releasing the responsibility of development, doing it yourself, to individuals, would go down well. Nigeria is a sort of society where once the boss says everyone moves left, whether he's right or wrong, everybody moves left. If he wakes up the very next morning and says we're moving right, whether he's wrong or right, everybody moves right. So the top end, the leadership, the presidency, the politicians and all that, the policymakers, they're in the best position to drive that social change. Because for me, to get to a point where development makes sense, we've got to have very good social re-engineering, because the way we think, the way we do things here, it's not sustainable. It's not, it's not holistic.
I guess some would argue that, well, the top end people, they may lead, but the problem is that they're not really connected to the rest of the population.
Very true, yeah. There is a huge disconnect. You have people who, work their way through the system, get up there and seem to just forget everything about what's down there. And it's an unfortunate reality. It's impossible to have that to change overnight. It's utterly impossible, because these things are very systemic. And being systemic, it's got to take, it would require time to unsystemize, if I may put it that way. So we can only hope and pray that the changes, as gradual as they might be, would take hold over time.
The last 2 days I've been listening to academics saying that the state doesn't deliver here, so people have to do it themselves.
True. Some people have to do what they need to do to live. But you and I might decide to prefix that action with the phrase DIY, so that we can formalize it and have control over it. That doesn't make it DIY. No, they're just doing what they have to do to survive. Whether it's stealing, I don't need to do that to survive, because my social context is different from theirs. It's not a failed state, but they're state failings. I mean, almost everyone here is a local government area in themselves. They drill their own water. You better provide your own security. You need to, we're running a generator here because, you've got to make sure you have your own power. Now, all of these are a reflection of a state failing, not a failed state. DIY urbanism, as good and as true as it might seem in other locations, Western locations, it probably still has a bit more time to go before we can risk it taking root here.
As a designer, a built environment designer, it is my responsibility to be worried about what happened in the urban space. Because gone are the days when you design just individual buildings. Now you're worried about how a building addresses the street and what role the street plays in the entire city. So it's all of these little bits that comes together to make the city. So it's not enough to design a building and go away. So you must be interested in all the social issues that results from these architectures that we design and build.
So most of what we have in Africa in terms of DIY urbanism is functional rather than aesthetically pleasing. So therefore, the investments that people make in their environment does not have any concrete effect on how the investment value of the land appreciates. So mostly people just invest to survive in a way. It's all about function, not about aesthetics, not about value into the society and into the land.
Isn't that a question of resources as well? If you have little resources, you only do just enough to survive.
Yes, the problem is with the little you have, most times if the mentality is right, the same resource you use to do just the basics, you can also use it to do something that has aesthetic value. the same amount of cement you use to plaster a place to make it look one way. You can still use the same amount of cement and say, please, I want it to have this particular aesthetic quality and feel. But most times people just, please just do this quickly, I just need to get somewhere to put my head on. So if you have the mentality to say, you see, this thing is an investment in my surroundings. My surroundings have to look good. I'm making a rational investment. I'm not just doing this for survival purposes. There has to be aesthetics, there has to be utility, and there has to be a synergy between these two.
So we look to get people involved in thinking green, trying to reduce carbon footprint, increase green footprint at the same time while being sustainable. And we try to get individuals in general to look at architecture from a point of view of the lifestyle. Next year, we're trying to go through like different schools to start with the young professionals. We're doing a Let's Design Green campaign, and we're getting young professionals to start thinking different. Architects need to get up and get into communities and do the dirty work. So at the end of the day, we're trying to get professionals as well as the usual Nigerians to think differently and help the situation instead of just waiting on people, because we have to change it for ourselves, because we know what we want.